Good morning, folks. We're going to be talking about centralizing client and server observability at the scale. But I do understand this is the last day of the conference. Welcome to Friday. You made it. Fantastic. Raise your hand if you went to the party last night. Wow, a lot of people, and you came here. Fantastic. I love that. So we're going to be talking a fairly technical conversation here, but I do have to have a dad joke because I'm a father. So why are observability specialists always so happy? Because we're able to find the silver lining in the logs. There you go. OK. So let's introduce ourselves. Please, Alex.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Alex Singer, and I'm a product manager on Firebase, and specifically Firebase Crashlytics.
Wonderful. My name is Jose Andrade. I am a specialist in observability and SRE, site reliability engineering. I was able to hand out a few of the new SRE books. We have more copies of the SRE book at the SRE booth downstairs. So if you didn't get a copy, please stop by the SRE booth, and we'll get you a copy of the book. Those are the first two chapters. The full book is coming in October. And let's get into all the details of this. So we're going to be talking a few topics in here. First, I'm going to tell you cloud observability. So raise your hand if you have experience with cloud observability in Google Cloud. All right, a little bit more than half. Now raise your hand if you have experience with Firebase or Crashlytics. All right, a few people on the Crashlytics sites. Wonderful. We're going to talk about how Crashlytics and cloud observability get integrated now. Then we have a special video from Yahoo, who has been using this for a little while. And we'll open up for questions and answers. So yeah, if you have a question that, like, I really need to ask that, just wait for the end, and we'll give you a microphone, and then you can ask those questions. So let's talk about cloud observability. Why is cloud observability important? So cloud observability is integrated with all of the Google products. If you start a database in Google Cloud, a VM, a cluster, anything that you do, it already has cloud observability built in, logs, metrics, and traces, which is fantastic. So we're going to be talking specifically about logs. Everything goes into cloud logging. Cloud logging is a fantastic platform built for scale. It's available in all of the Google Cloud regions. And what it offers a couple of UIs to do the analysis of your logs. So for you to understand what's happening with your logs, what is in your systems. You can create dashboards. You can have different types of charts. And I'll show you all of that in the demo. In addition to that, of course, there's Gemini Cloud Assistant there. So you can collaborate with Gemini. You can ask questions about your logs, like, why am I seeing this? What is this problem? Can you help me analyze my systems? You can absolutely do that with the help of Gemini Cloud Assist. So for SREs, that is quite important. Not only is cloud observability and cloud logging specifically a great platform, but it integrates with all of the different Google Cloud projects. If we're talking about enterprises have thousands of projects. And the question is, how do you manage the logs across thousands of projects? Well, you can centralize all of that. You can have a central observability project that is receiving the logs from all of the other projects. I've worked with many banks and technology companies, retailers, media companies, into creating architectures that works for them. Not only can you send the logs from all of your Google Cloud projects, but you can even send logs from outside of Google Cloud. Because cloud logging is OpenTelemetry compatible, as long as you're using the OpenTelemetry collector, you can send your logs into your central observability project. So you may have a data center with all your logs, and you may be using other cloud providers. It doesn't matter where they are. As long as you can use OpenTelemetry, we can receive those logs, and you can centralize in one location. Then you can split those logs again on log buckets. That means that only specific teams have access to their specific logs, and you can create permissions on the different log buckets. You can create different alerts. So if you want to be alerted when a specific log comes in, you can create that. If you want to be alerted by running a query every 10 minutes, every day, once a week, you can be alerted on those specific queries. So there's quite a bit of power into centralizing these logs. And I love it. I've been doing this for about 3-4 years now, and I'm impressed by the demands, the requirements that customers have, and like how we're able to adapt it because the platform is so flexible. This is fantastic, but then this leaves a little bit outside of the picture. What about all of your mobile logs? I didn't mention mobile. I mentioned all of the Google Cloud infrastructure, but everybody has a cell phone in their hands right now. What happens to those applications logs? And we didn't have that until now. Let me pass it on to my friend Alex to tell us about Crashlytics.
Thanks, Jose. So Firebase Crashlytics is a real-time crash reporting tool for your iOS and your Android apps that automatically collects telemetry and contextual data whenever a crash happens. Teams use it to monitor their overall app stability, to prioritize the most important crashes to fix, and to understand the details of a crash so that your teams can fix them faster. It has been around a long time. It is a loved product. It's the most adopted crash reporting tool on mobile, with heavy adoption for top iOS and Android apps. Teams really rely on it to monitor their production applications so that you're making sure that features you're building, you're putting out in the wild, they're working as you expected, and you're providing those delightful experiences to your end users. So it's important to know that there's a strong relationship between Firebase and Google Cloud. So a Firebase project is actually a cloud project under the hood. And Firebase uses a lot of the same foundational primitives as Google Cloud. So things like billing and user permissions are all shared. So that really enables sort of these seamless journeys between Firebase and Google Cloud. So we're going to take a look at sort of a full stack application today and how it's existed. I'm going to talk about the client side and then hand it off to Jose, who will talk about the server side. So if you look at client, this is what it looks like today. You've got your users on their end devices using your application. As an iOS or Android developer, you would add the Crashlytics SDK. Once you add the Crashlytics SDK, that's automatically going to start collecting crashes, ANRs, allow you to log non-fatals. Those will get uploaded to the Crashlytics service, where we analyze them and we group them into logical clusters so that you can figure out the priority and understand the impact.
Thank you, Alex. And I showed you this before. We have the backend, all of the Google Cloud infrastructure feeding logs into cloud logging using observability analytics. But you can see these two are not connected until today. So now you can send all of your Crashlytics logs directly into cloud logging and take advantage of that integrated observability from your front end, from your mobile applications, and more, which we're going to tell you what's coming, into the back end, so all of your infrastructure behind it. So now you can have a full picture of what is happening with your application. So why do we care about being able to see all of this in cloud logging? As I mentioned before, it is planet scale. Cloud logging is built in all of the Google Cloud regions. We can handle petabytes of data. I am working with customers who are sending petabytes of data a day, and we can handle that scale. It is not a problem. It is also optimized for OpenTelemetry. Just recently, we launched in the private preview for the OpenTelemetry Endpoint 4 logs. We already have OpenTelemetry Endpoint 4 traces and metrics, which means you call one specific endpoint. As long as you're running the OpenTelemetry collector with no additional exporters, you can send all of your telemetry to Cloud Observability. We also have a telemetry router just announced a couple of days ago. The telemetry router allows you to send the data to wherever you want, any Google Cloud project you want, and we are building functionality to be able to export the data in OpenTelemetry format. So not only are you able to ingest OpenTelemetry, you will be able to export OpenTelemetry. We just use SQL queries. Everybody knows SQL, but if you have a little bit of trouble using SQL, as I do, we have Gemini Cloud Assist, which can create the SQL queries for you. Not only that, but you can create the SQL alerts that I mentioned before. And then finally, all of this is integrated with BigQuery. If you're familiar with BigQuery, it's our big data warehousing product. Extremely powerful, and it has a lot of specific functions. If you want to do percentages and statistical functionality and all of that, you can use all of those functions directly in Cloud Observability through the BigQuery backend, or you can expose your data to BigQuery and then do correlations with external data. If you have customer information that you want to do correlations with logs, you can do that now because of the power of Cloud Observability. But OK, enough talking here. Let's show you a specific user who has gone through this. Let's talk a little bit about Yahoo in here. Let me see.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mohit Goenka, Director of Software Apps Engineering at Yahoo. I lead client platforms team, including Android, iOS, and web for the Yahoo Mail division. I'm going to talk about creating client and server insights for observability at scale. I'm going to focus on bridging front-end and back-end observability into a single source of truth. To start with, we had strong metrics on both sides, server as well as the client. However, they were disconnected. On the server side, we have cloud monitoring, logging, trace. On client, we have Firebase Crashlytics that is being used for gathering all crash-related metrics, RUM, which is real user metrics, and feedback coming directly from the users. We would have billions of daily interactions across our Android, iOS, and web applications. Both sides, server and client, are mature, reliable, and already operating at scale. Our issue is not that the data is missing. It's mainly the disconnection between server and the client. I'm going to talk more about how do we link feedback, crashes, and performance together. To show you an example, we have server dashboard that is showing everything is all clear, 200 OK with P99 less than 50 milliseconds. On the client side, we have frustrated users saying that the app is slow. We would have 3-second load times. Same user, same problem, two separate stories in the two separate systems. It's like, our dashboards were in a long distance relationship. They knew about each other, but never actually talked. This is what the disconnection looks in practice. On the server side, we have a view that shows cloud monitoring where everything is green, API latency where P99 is well within SLO, error rates are stable with all the graphs showing downward trends. Engineers essentially saying that everything looks good from here. I have a little chart there showing different types of metrics. API inbox latency of 12 milliseconds, API send latency of 8 milliseconds, search latency of 34 milliseconds, and an error rate of 0.02%. If you look at it from server-side view, our application should be performing in the best possible way. On the client side, we would have Crashlytics showing crash trend, which is down. However, user feedback would be that app is slow. Core web vitals would degrade for some of the devices. And on the client side, the story would be that we can see the pain, but we can't pinpoint why that pain is there. Put it in practice, backend is celebrating with a coffee saying that we have 12 millisecond latency. However, front-end engineers are frustrated with 8 seconds load time. Users are complaining, I'm switching apps, and our SRE dashboards show everything to be fine, and they're all puzzled. We solved this problem by creating a link called YMREC-ID, short for Yahoo Mail Requisition Identifier, that would then connect with Crashlytics and cloud logging. We start with a tag where we generate YMREC-ID on every action. So as the user taps somewhere in the application, we would generate an ID on the client. The same ID would flow through the APIs and go to the server. Along similar lines, Crashlytics would capture it. It would have custom key on crashes and feedback. Feedback would include device state as well as YMREC ID. So trying to build a system that can flow through the entire application and carry that YMREC ID everywhere. In terms of correlation, cloud logging would act as hub, where Crashlytics is sending data to cloud logging export. Server logs are being sent to cloud logging sync, and YMREC IDs are essentially working as joins. Crash and server trace are all available in one row. Feedback along with API latency and errors can all be viewed in one row. To understand what this looks like, full journey of any given user looks like a tab that creates the YMREC ID, flowing through the network, going to the server, and then rendering on the client. It's one ID that is revealing the full story. If we look at the feedback flow, if the user complains that the app is running slow, we would look at the YAML ID, look at the exact bottleneck through all the APIs, and connect them together. Similar story with crash rates, where we could directly correlate that with the server health and figure out what was going on in every part of the system. To show you an example, if the user is complaining that the app is running slow, or if there are negative sentiments, we can use the YAML ID as a join between client and server to get all the data related to crashes or any other events, including feedback, API latency, or error codes that we might need to debug what's going on in the application. What this results in is if the user is saying that the application is slow, we know exactly why. There is no finger pointing required. The impact of this is that we have gone from having two views to having a consistent story. We have faster root cause analysis, which is minutes, not hours. With one YAML ID surfacing the full trace, client and server data in one single query. There is proactive detection. Fix can be done even before a ticket arrives. Crash spikes can be correlated back to the server errors. Issues are surfaced before users report it. We can go from feedback to root cause analysis. If the user is saying that the application is slow, we know why it is slow. Feedback is directly linked with server latency, device state, and network via the same YAML ID. It leads to one connected view with same ID on the same dashboard. Frontend, backend, SRE, everybody's looking at the same data, so there is no finger pointing required. It's almost like our users would think that we're psychic, but we're not. We just really have good joints. We didn't need more data. We just needed our existing data to talk to each other. Thank you for listening to this conversation. Your application is only as healthy as your users perceive it. So if it works for you, use one ID, use one join, and that will lead you to one truth about everything going on in your application. The best debugging tool isn't a log or a trace or a metric. It's a good join. Thanks again. My name is Mohit Goenka. I lead the Yahoo Mail Clients Platform team, and I hope this talk was useful for your application and how you implement logging in your systems.
I love it. And so many great quotes in there. What I didn't tell you is that for reasons of logistics and how things work out, Mohit wasn't able to join us here in the stage, but he is right here. So if you have questions for Mohit right after the talk, please come talk to us. He's an amazing person. We've been working with Mohit for several months now, full of knowledge. So yeah, come to him. But yeah, Mohit mentioned we don't need more data. We just need to be able to have the data talk to each other. That is what we're doing here. And I want to show you a little bit more of that. So let me see if I can go to the next one. There you go. All right. So we're going to do a quick demo. I'm going to show you how to actually do all of this. Let's say you have an application. It's a mobile game, or maybe it's a web store. You're selling something, and then you have a Crashlytics in there. How will you go about connecting all of this? Can we go into the demo computer, please?
OK, so what you're seeing here is the default Crashlytics dashboard that you get out of the box. So we provide you with a list of all your issues and then some top-level metrics. So you have sort of a glanceable view of how your app's doing. By default, the export to cloud logging isn't enabled. So the first thing I have to do is head into the project settings integrations. And under integrations, you'll see cloud logging. And what we've just recently released is support for Crashlytics. So I'll come down here. I will enable the cloud logging export. That's turned on. And so what this is going to enable is anytime a crash happens, Crashlytics will receive it and in real time export that data to cloud logging. And Jose is going to show you how we're using that data.
Wonderful. So as soon as you start enabling that connection, it means that all of your logs are going to be going into your specific Google Cloud project that is attached to this Firebase environment. So if you do nothing in here, all of your logs are going to come in here and are going to go into the default log bucket. But generally, you want to do something with those logs. It could be sending them to a partner. We work closely with Splunk or Datadog or Grafana. You can send the logs to them. You can just create a sync in here and send to one of the partners. In my case, what I want is to send all of these logs to my central observability project. So down here, I created a sync that sends it to my project, which is actually in a different GCP organization. It happens that the Firebase team has their own org, and we have a different org, and you can send the logs across organizations by creating a simple sync as long as you have the permissions. Once you do that, you're going to have all of the logs flowing into your central observability project, which is this one right here. I'm going to go into my logging environment in here. I'll click on the log router. If I do nothing, all the logs will end up in my default log bucket. But in this case, I want my mobile logs in their own specific log bucket. So I created a log bucket for those right in here. It means all of those logs are flowing into their own log bucket. And I have my backend application here, but in a completely different log bucket. I can do the correlation across the log buckets. I'm going to go now into the log storage and show you my different log buckets in here. This shows you some basic information about those buckets, including how much data do they have right now, how much data was there the previous month, and all of this being captured with metrics, so you can see the data flowing into the log buckets. But now that you have the logs in this specific project, you can start the analysis of these logs. I'm going to go into the Logs Explorer. And in here, I have my log scope. So you can see my awesome app log scope right in here, which means that I'm correlating the logs from the front end and the back end in one UI. I can type any type of queries in here. But in this case, I don't want to have the back end logs in here. How do I look just at my front end logs? I can go in here and select my specific log bucket in my log view. And I have only my mobile logs in here. And you can see I have a few issues. Oh, there's a problem in here. How do I find out what's going on with this specific log entry? I can click on Investigate Log. And right now, yesterday, in fact, we just announced Cloud Assist investigations with background agents, which means you can have this running in the background and notify you of things. Right now, you need to be, I think, customers with Premier support are enabled by default. But if you don't have Premier support and you want access, talk to your account team, and we can get you enabled for that. Once you run an investigation on your log, it's going to come back with some answers about what is happening, what is this log about, and maybe even provide you with some suggestions as to how to fix the problem. I'm not going to wait for the investigation. It can take a few minutes, so we're going to leave that running in there. But at the same time, we can go into the Log Analytics UI. And Log Analytics is, the name is changing to Observability Analytics, because now you can have traces, and in the future, you're going to be able to have metrics in here. So this is more of an advanced analytics UI. We created the query builder to help you create those SQL queries that sometimes are a little bit difficult to use. So you can see here, it gives me a UI to select my specific log views and craft my query. But if you're comfortable with SQL, you can just click on the SQL option in here, and there you have a SQL query built for you. I'm going to run this query, and I'll show you a couple of additional options. So for example, you can create an alert. So I mentioned before that you can run a query that it runs every so many minutes or so many hours. And you can have this query alert you when there is a problem or when there's the answer for your specific question. In addition, I have the option of creating dashboards in here. I can save my queries to dashboards. I can create charts based on my queries, and it can be a bar chart, it could be a pie chart, area chart, different types of charts. All of these can become a widget that you can add into a dashboard. So I'm going to do precisely that. I'm going to go into my dashboards, and I have a pre-created dashboard in here for my awesome app. So in a dashboard, you don't have to have just your logging information or your telemetry information. You can add graphics. In this case, I have a fantastic logo in there. Thank you, Gemini. You can have a widget that has bookmarks in Markdown. So if you need to have links to additional nodes, or you want to have a link to the incident management application, anything you want, you can have it running here. It can also display the information of any service health events. If you're not familiar with service health, it is the tool that we use to notify you if there is a problem with Google Cloud. So if the region is having some type of issue, I will probably see my events right in here. In this case, we don't have nothing going on, which is fantastic. But right down in here, you can see my front end and my back end on the same dashboard. So I have a few logs on my front end, 240 and 120,000 so logs on my back end. You can see that I have in here a nice pie chart. What this is just a SQL query, as I mentioned before. I'm just showing the logs by severity in here. And you can have the breakdown of the severity of the different logs. And in addition, these are the bytes of the logs that are there being streamed into the log bucket. So I can see how the ingestion is happening on my front end and also on my back end. And then lastly, on the same dashboard, I have all of my logs, which I can query and can go through the information and analyze. So if there is an incident, I have everything in one dashboard that will help me troubleshoot any of the problems. Wonderful. So I mentioned, let's go back to the slides, please. And I mentioned that there's a few things coming. So Alex, tell us about that.
All right. So first off, we're super excited about all the new integrations between Crashlytics and Cloud Observability. It's really cool to be able to get your client and server-side data all consolidated in one place. And for Crashlytics users, you get to take advantage of all sort of the advanced functionality and capabilities that Cloud Observability has. So you can build those custom dashboards, create advanced alerts, run advanced queries, things you can't really do in Crashlytics today. So we wanted to give you a preview of some things to come. The first one we're really excited about because it has been a very long time request. We are working on Crashlytics support for web apps. So historically, we've only been mobile, Android, and iOS. Later this year, we're going to launch web support. We're building this on Cloud Observability by default. So all of the data will automatically live in cloud logging and will be stored in the OpenTelemetry format. Next up, we're working on client and server traces. So we're thinking about how do you make Crashlytics a more holistic tool? And how do you tie that connection automatically between client-side interactions and server-side? So we're going to start to bring performance metrics into Crashlytics, and those will live by default in Cloud Trace and will be accessible there. And really, this is all building up to a vision where we want to have this really powerful, holistic RUM or real user monitoring experience that we can offer to cloud customers, where you can go in and you can view your core web vitals, your performance monitoring data, your crashes, all your client-side data, along with your server data to give you this really powerful capability.